A very good evening and welcome back to my channel. So the topic for today is energy flow in an ecosystem. This is a bridge topic for class 10 R environment, again an important part for the board exams, as well as class 12 ecosystem, and again equally important for the board exams. Often about 80 to 90% of times we get a question on energy flow either directly or through the help of ecological pyramids. Ecological pyramids I will be doing in the next video, so you can get the playlist of this chapter and watch that video as well. So let's get started with the topic. When I talk about energy flow, I am basically meaning how energy is flowing through various tropic levels. Okay. Now what is tropic level and what are the various tropic levels? We have already covered in one of our videos on tropic levels and their classifications in ecosystem chapter. You can view that in the playlist as well. Alright. So as we all should know that the ultimate source of energy of any ecosystem is the sun. Overall energy comes from the sun only, sun sys. Okay, so this I have the sun, which is the ultimate source of energy from the ecosystem by its radiation. So this sun will emit radiations, okay, of certain amount of energy which will sustain the ecosystem. But one thing we should know from this as well, if the sun is emitting any amount of energy, only 50% of that energy can be trapped by the autotrophs. Now we know the sun's energy is trapped by the autotrophs and then by photosynthesis they convert it into organic matter. Okay, so suppose sun is emitting n joules of energy. Out of this n joules, only you would say that n by 2 joules is available for photosynthesis. And this available radiation for photosynthesis is called PAR, photosynthetically active radiation. Okay, PAR. Fine. Now when this photosynthetically active radiation reaches the first tropic level, the producers. Now what do I mean by producers? Producers are those organisms which can convert inorganic materials of the sun's energy to organic materials, which in the form of food. Okay, so producers convert the inorganic material to organic material, okay, by sunlight, from sunlight with the action of chlorophyll. Because the producers have chlorophyll in them, CHL stands for chlorophyll, they can do this reaction, and this whole reaction we know is called photosynthesis. Okay, fine. But one more thing to remember is that out of this photosynthetically active radiation, which is 50% of the incident radiation, this is 50% of total radiation of the sun is photosynthetically active radiation. Out of this 50%, only 1 to 10% is absorbed by the plants. Plants don't need all the radiation, they only need 1 to 10% of this photosynthetically active radiation. Now if I talk about photosynthetically active radiation, you should just understand that plants have certain chlorophyll, A, chlorophyll B, xanthophylls, caroticoids. These are the pigments that plants have, and each of these pigments is associated with a certain wavelength of light. Okay, so photosynthetically active radiation basically means those radiations which are having that suitable wavelength which the plant can take. The rest of the light maybe exceeds or is below that wavelength and plants cannot absorb it. Alright, this is the basic gist of the part. For this you can refer to the chapter of photosynthesis class 11, and if you want I will definitely make a video on that as well. Okay, feel free to comment. Alright, so as I told you, 1 to 10% of PAR, photosynthetically active radiation, is taken up by the producers and they make food, and this process of course is called primary productivity. Again we have a video on productivity. Okay, so please watch that for your reference. Primary productivity. Now once the producers make this food, the energy which is 1 to 10% of the photosynthetically active radiation, which is again a huge amount of energy, is transferred to the primary consumer. Alright, the primary consumer, if I tell, it actually means the herbivores. The herbivores will eat the plants and this energy will get transferred to the herbivores. How much of energy will be transferred? The amount of energy which will be transferred is 10% of the energy which was available here. 10% of energy which plants got, that will be taken up by the primary consumer, which is the herbivore. Fine. Now from this, the herbivore will be eaten by carnivore. The carnivore, if we assume maybe a small carnivore first, which is called the secondary consumer. So from the primary consumer, they will eat it, and we will go to the secondary consumer, which is the small carnivores. Example, the jackals, dogs, wolves, hyena, these are all small carnivores. Wild cats, they will eat these herbivores, and what will happen? Again, they will get the energy will transfer from the herbivores to what? To the small carnivore. How much? Again 10%. Alright. Now you will be having this question that if this energy flow is happening and 10% of energy is going always, then what is happening to the rest of the energy? Where is it? Firstly, some amount of energy the producer or each topic level will use for themselves only, for sustaining themselves, their needs. But where is the next amount of energy going? The next amount of energy is actually going nowhere, but is transferred as heat to the environment, or I would say is lost as heat to the environment. So I will write how will I represent it? I'll just show you. Minus heat. Heat has been lost here as well. Heat has been lost here as well. Okay. Alright. Now, after the secondary consumer, which is the small carnivore, comes your tertiary consumer, which is the last trophic level, which is the large carnivore, the kings of the jungle, tigers, lions, etc. How much energy will they get? They will also get 10% of the energy of here. Okay, and again I will write here as well, heat energy is lost to the environment. So what I can generalize from this information is that once the producers get 1 to 10% of the photosynthetically active radiation, the energy will flow from one tropic level to the other, from the lower tropic level to the higher tropic level, following a 10% law, which states that from successive lower tropic level to the next higher tropic level, 10% of the energy will get flown, and the rest of the energy may be used by the lower tropic level or will be transferred to the environment or lost to the environment as heat. This is your 10% law. Now from this 10% law we get two results which are important. The result number one is flow of energy is always unidirectional. What do I mean by that? The energy will always flow in one direction, that is from the producer to primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer. That is from the lower tropic level to the higher tropic level. Each level in a food chain is a tropic level. Okay, energy will never flow like this, T to S consumer to primary consumer to producer, never. It will only flow in this way. Okay, and the second is that producers generally are most in number. General case this is. Now why is the producer more in number? This is because who is getting the maximum energy? The producer. Producer is getting maximum energy. Rest of them are only getting 10% of the previous one. The energy amount that each of them is getting is very low. So that's why the producers are generally in maximum diversity, because they are getting the maximum efficiency from the food they are consuming. One more, there are limited tropic levels. Limited tropic levels. Why don't I have a quaternary consumer or number 5 consumer? Why is there not those kinds of tropic levels? Because if I move even further from this, the amount of energy passed on in the food will be so low that it won't sustain the organism. Okay, is that fine? The amount of energy will become so low. Alright, okay. Now in my video on tropic levels, I have also explained that if I talk about decomposers, which are again an equally important part of the ecosystem, at every tropic level I will get decomposers. Alright, and that would actually mark the beginning of a food chain called the detritus food chain. Again, I will be making a video on that, so you can go to the comments description box and your playlist to look at that video as well on detritus food chain and decomposition. Fine? Okay. So this was about your energy flow. Now there are some important conclusions. Again, I will be emphasizing on you for the energy flow topic. So let's take a look at them as well. The first one is energy flow is consistent with thermodynamics. Energy flow is always consistent with thermodynamics. Alright, thermodynamics has some laws. We have emphasized on the first and second law and the third law in class 11 thermodynamics. This is an exclusive part for class 12. For class 10, thermodynamics is not essential. Okay, so energy flow follows the first law of thermodynamics, which is basically the law of conservation of energy. Conservation of energy. This is the first law of thermodynamics. Energy flow is consistent with this first law of thermodynamics completely. How? Energy is neither created in the ecosystem, energy is neither destroyed. The amount of energy which is captured, 10% flows and the rest of it is lost as heat. There is no addition or subtraction of energy. Second is the second law of thermodynamics. Now what does the second law of thermodynamics say? They say this basically that if I say it in the biological terms and chemical terms, we actually define it as that the entropy is directly, the spontaneity of a reaction is again measured by entropy. More will be the randomness in a reaction, more spontaneous it will be. Okay, but in biological terms I say that a constant amount of energy I would require to actually counteract or remove the universal tendency towards increasing disorderliness, that I would need energy always to counteract disorderliness. Okay, which is basically your entropy in terms of chemistry. Okay, that's how it is showing. In the ecosystem also, when the energy is flowing from one tropic level to the other, we are needing energy to remove disorderliness and maintain a discipline in the ecosystem, maintain a balance of the food chain in the ecosystem. Fine. Alright. Now before closing the class, I will do one numerical from this topic, because generally we are asked a numerical from this topic as well. The numerical states that, I'll just state the numerical. It's a very simple one. I'll just take a simple one for calculation convenience. The rest of it you can of course do. Photosynthetically active radiation or sun's light is how much? 10 lakh joules. Calculate energy available at each tropic level. Okay, this is the question. Now what am I given? Photosynthetically active radiation, the power is your 10 lakh joules. Okay, the first thing is I have to do the calculation of energy at each tropic level. Fine. So I already know that 1 to 10% of this power is taken up by the producers. So at the producer level, if I calculate the energy, it will be 1 upon 100, 1% into 10 lakh. I'll take 1%. We already always take 1% for calculation convenience. From photosynthetically active radiation to producer, we take 1% for calculation convenience. Okay. So how much amount of energy am I getting? I am getting 10,000 joules for the producer. From the producer, I go to the primary consumer. So this will now go to the primary consumer. How much will it get? I'll follow the 10% law now. 10%, each of them will get 10% of the previous one. 10 upon 100 into 10,000. Oh sorry, this is 10,000. Which will be how much? 1,000 joules. From this I move on to the secondary consumer. So I'm just following the 10% law. Okay, from here I am following the 10% law which we just discussed, that in successive tropic levels energy will flow from 10% to 10% to 10%. Again this will become 1 by 10, 10 upon 100 is 1 by 10 into 1000, which will be 100 joules. And from this if I calculate to the tertiary consumer, finally from this I calculate to the tertiary consumer, it will be 1 upon 10 into 100, which is how much? Just 10 joules. So in a given amount of food, is if a producer is getting 10,000 joules from a given photosynthetically active radiation of 10 lakh joules, out of that only 10 joules is reaching the tertiary consumer. This explains why the tigers, the lions are so less in number, whereas the plants are so much more in number. Okay, the result which I had just done in 2 minutes ago. Fine. So this was about your energy flow, and an important and a basic numerical on this. Calculations can be varied with other values as well. So just basically depending on your percentage calculation. Okay. Always report your answer in joules, which is the standard unit of energy. Okay. So you have to report your answer in joules always. Don't forget it. You have marks for this. Okay. Alright. So with this we close the class, and I'll soon be back with the next parts of this chapter and other subject chapters as well. In case if you have any doubt or want me to do any specific topic, doubt, question, chapter, etc., please do feel free to write in the comment section. Okay, it's all yours and it's truly appreciated. Thank you. Stay safe.